In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, he is Astrea. And I'll talk about the players in a second. Yeah, so if you guys ever want to get into casting, right? Unfortunately, these open cups, I think, are no longer taking caster applications as of right now. I think that'll change in the future. But they've you know, they got a lot and then kind of had to call it a little bit. But anyways, for anything in the future that has like a decent amount of casters, you know, kind of like an open casting call, right? The etiquette is, okay, generally, it's whatever the hell you want for the first, like, 2 or 3 matches. You know, it's a round of 64, then whatever. Up until basically the quarter or the semis. And then you're more so looking for other players to cast at that point for just uniqueness, right? You want your stream to be unique, and you don't want to just have, you know, the same thing that everyone else is doing. Otherwise, it's still okay, actually, to cast the same game. Up to the finals. Unless you have some, like, street brawl that needs to happen because you're taking someone's slot, which isn't even happening, doesn't really matter. You can also cast the same game. My point is, it is better to have content on your stream at all times as opposed to trying to find that unique content until it is readily available, you know? Don't just assume that you can't join the same game as another English commentator or German or whatever what you're casting here. That's just my 2 cents, okay? I feel like people are getting it a little lopsided, you know, a little reversed. And then I think people even take it to an extreme where they're like, okay, I can't cast the same game as anyone else, even in a round of 256 when everyone else has started and I was late, but I'm just gonna have to grit my teeth and deal with it. No, go ahead, jump in whatever you want, doesn't really matter. And then when it gets to the round of 8 and the round of 4, they're like, oh, okay, other people are casting this, so I'm just going to tap out. And it's like, no, you don't have to. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, but you don't have to. We can all share the love. We can all share this beautiful game. But anyways. I'm sure there's someone in chat who's going to disagree with me. And be like, what about the other thing? Nah, it doesn't matter. I could talk all day about what can happen. My point is, everyone's free to do this. Everyone who has applied and been accepted into the casting of this can do this. Oh, Astrea is doing an awful lot of scouting, which makes sense. Zoun is a cheesy player. Also didn't have a second pylon at home because he placed it outside, which Astrea was looking for to try and confirm if it was fake or not. He has found it. He confirms that it was indeed a fake proxy. His probe just confirms the nexus as well. Either one would have given him some information. I think the ultimate point is that while searching for something, he didn't get hit by something, you know? Like, the worst case scenario is you go hunting for a pylon to the right side, it's a proxy start on the left side, you have nothing at home to defend. This scenario right here is kind of like, it's like a mess scenario, right? It's not great, but it's not the worst. He spends 100 minerals on a shield battery he doesn't need, and then keeps some units at home, which I guess technically also didn't have to do. Not that they would be doing very much else. But yeah, maybe if they were on the front lines faster, they could have poked and prodded at this. Maybe that's a big maybe. Zoun was playing cautiously and had a shield battery of his own on the low ground. So that's what's gonna happen. PvP has so much information to go through, and then so much information that can be easily faked, that it's a bit of a guessing game, actually. I like to think that even with such weird, awkward starts, you know, say that you really misidentify what's going on, you get a shield battery in the main, you get 2 shield batteries in the natural, and actually nothing is happening. I like to think you can make a comeback in some other way, but those are the things that can really add up, and then suddenly, you know, everyone has the same exact units, for the most part. Suddenly you are just straight up behind, and you can't do very much about it. That's mirror matchups for you. Astrea is going to go into a Stargate. That was before his Nexus was thrown on, I believe. So you double up on the Oracle. You can definitely take advantage. Or just hope they never build a shield battery. Which Zoun is building a shield battery. So you got to double up on the Oracle. You only want to do some damage here. Astrea also proxied a pylon, but didn't actually use it. And then we have Blink for Zoun, which I thought was a very interesting choice. That actually just finished up. He saw a Stargate building, it looks like, with something or another, or Lucent Phoenix, I suppose. But he also saw a forge. And I don't know how much you really commit to a Stargate opener if you're going to also get a forge. So I really feel like Zoun is not doing this defensively or as a reflex, but rather, yeah, to be aggressive here. No immortal production as the Robo is only halfway done, really catching Astrea in an awkward spot, the Oracle being absolutely useless. On the other side of the map, the Stalker's blinking now to micro away from the Zealot, to micro against the Sentry, and there's just nothing here for Astrea. Astrea is actually going to die. It's happening. This is a lot of damage to take right now. Shield Battery really helps. And the second Shield Battery might just be able to finish here, but that is 7 Stalkers against 2. Robo can't even be chroned right now. I think he's going to have a chrono in a second, but this is an awful lot of damage to take. This one Stalker is finally going to go down since it aggressively blinked to a probe, nonetheless. It's always embarrassing, but the rest of these Stalkers are going to have a blink out. They're getting a little bit low, so when that Immortal pops, they better have a blink away. And actually, if the probe pull once again, or rather still going, he's going to be able to tackle some other Stalkers, but leaving with 3 Stalkers, 1 severely injured after killing 10 probes. Actually, let's take a whole look at the damage here. Oh my good god. 13 probes, 2 Zealots, 7 Sentries, well, or 7 Stalkers, I think it was 6. I think 1 died in the front lines. 2 Sentries, a Shield Battery, and a Pylon, all for basically 6 Stalkers. That's, go away. Oh god, it's not working anymore. Go away. There we go. That's pretty darn good. I guess you have to kind of account for the fact that Zoun got Blink, which will become more useless over time, but I think that's okay. It's actually not something you really are accounting for in this type of game anymore, because Astrea has like a also kind of useless tech structure right now. The Oracle wasn't too helpful. The Void Ray is increasingly less helpful. And he even has less Immortals. There's really not a lot of things going for Astrea here. Well, that Lucent Phoenix sees a very not big army. That's very not big. I mean, a Void Ray with a Shield Battery, an Immortal, and a Guardian Shield, like, that packs a wallop to a bunch of Stalkers, of which Zoun is still very heavy on. So you can't just end the game right here, right now. But as time goes on, you assume that Zoun would get to a more standard PvP composition. As I said, it had its own Immortals. I was certainly expecting Charge That Archon. Templar Archon is finishing up now. But he actually has a lot of Adepts in here. Now that's not so much because they're utilizing any upgrade they have. He's not going for a mass Adept type thing, but they are certainly going to threaten every part of this engagement. Blinking on top of that high ground Immortal. Shield Battery instantly went down. Guardian Shield is popped. It's actually a Void Ray against a Sentry right there. That was the least damage I think a Void Ray could have done in that situation. GG. Zoun does close it out. I feel like that was less on Zoun's just like, what am I doing? You don't know. And more on Astrea's, like, being overly clever, I feel. I might have missed something because I was definitely ranting about nothing about the game. But, regardless, the Stargate reaction was, I feel like, always a bit more of a gamble than, say, just a plain old Robo. The Robo is kind of the safest thing you can ever do in PvP. And I think that is a fact. Maybe some PvP pro will come in and be like, actually, but Robo is usually pretty safe. To go for a Stargate, that's limited time where it's actually useful, right? Because Stargate units get worse over time. Less likely to do damage over time, I guess. Not part of a main composition over time. And, you know, they kind of depend on actually doing something. That's their trade-off, right? And Astrea didn't do anything. So I didn't like the Stargate, but perhaps that's because going deep, digging deeper into PvP, how often does someone in Zoun's position, which is getting a somewhat to say successful fake pylon, right? I was gonna call it a fake off, but that is like very non-descriptive, but you guys know what I mean. You know, he successfully does that, gets a Nexus up, holds against the tiniest little bit of aggression. How often does that guy go for Blink? Which gives him this access to being aggressive that most other openers don't quite give, both aggressive and with the opportunity to pull back. So I guess that's probably more why Astrea died with his choice than it is just the choice itself. Is because why would Zoun go Blink? Why would Zoun push up a ramp into the natural with 7 Stalkers without a War Prism and actually take the engagement? Because he saw an opportunity. So I guess we could kind of blame that more so than anything else. But we're going to have more PvP weirdness because it's PvP and it's Zoun. Zoun really a big fan of these quote-unquote fake proxy pylons. He will definitely mix it up and actually use it, so that's why it's so important for Astrea to find it. Best case scenario, he finds it with the probe and then can keep track of Zoun's probe and be like, are you doing something or aren't you? But that doesn't always happen. Best offense and defense against someone who is proxying something is the Stalker openers. If you go for Stalker openers and then you use them to check arounds, then that scenario I talked about last game happens, where you don't find the proxy Stargate. Now, thankfully, his probe does, but to go on that hypothetical for a little while longer, like, you don't see this, then your Stalkers are in position to defend against them. They can't quite, like, break up a ramp, right? They might be able to poke a Nexus, but that's kind of it. And then you don't have Lucid Phoenix to get any further scouting in case it's actually, like, a 3-gate push or something. I don't know. So it's, like, super tricky, but this game actually not going for the Stalkers. So going for the Adepts is also kind of tricky because now you have 2 units that don't even help against an Oracle, should they even stay at home. They're unlikely to do damage on the other side of the map as well in the professional games because Shield Battery Micro is pretty good. Ooh, but in this case, Astrea getting the better end of the openers. Adepts shown for both sides. Both sides also actually going for Stargate. Astrea is just a little bit later, as well as obviously not proxied. He pops out 2 Stalkers as Zoun is also working on 2 Stalkers, but Zoun put emphasis on his Oracle first and foremost. Astrea, figuring, well, he already knew actually, that it's a Stargate, is going into that Phoenix, which does pop pretty much in the nick of time here as Zoun's Oracle tries to swoop in. So that's very, very well timed. And then it misses the Oracle, so what? Doesn't matter. Shield Battery finished as well. Stalkers were in position. I think maybe you could say that that wasn't supposed to happen, and Astrea also didn't have to get a Shield Battery. Boom, 100 minerals saved, but thankfully he went for all 3 forms of defenses. Because that dumbass Phoenix did not see that Oracle. It should also have killed the... Well, maybe with the instant recall it wouldn't have killed it, but... yeah. Zoun making something out of nothing, I would say. Even just getting like those 2 probe kills he got and then having the Oracle live, I feel is just far more than what should happen with Astrea's scout and defense. Now, since he is going into Phoenix, Zoun has seen at least 2 Phoenix. I understand the blink as a response a lot more. I'm very curious on hearing like Protosses talk about why they go blink as a choice as opposed to reaction. It's kind of just like a fact that if you're up against a Phoenix player, you got to go into blink. And then the Phoenix player would be like, actually, I have a ton of Immortals. And then you go into what we call a PvP. It's, you know, kind of silly. But I'm not so sure about like just actually choosing to go into blink, assuming everything else is above board. It usually doesn't feel that good, but obviously last game, Zoun really made it work. And I guess to say it's usually not that good should be clarified. Because, you know, once upon a time, Blink was actually the go-to thing, man. It was the bomb diggity for PvP. So were Colossus, though, and that's just not the... Anyways. Times change. But Blink usually doesn't do a lot of damage to make it a good opening choice. Usually. The last game it worked out. This game it might work out. We'll see how he utilizes his Blink Stalkers. Nice little attack there with an Oracle and a Adept that otherwise are going to be quite useless. So to get 6 probes is not too shabby. Zoun is, yeah, heavily delayed in his robo, actually. Whereas Astrea got his nice and well-timed, chronoed out an Observer, it looks like. But also starts up Blink. Okay, alright. Phoenix trying to do what they can. I mean, if they're only going to go into a number of 4 or 5, it's very limited what they can actually do. And you could say that Blink might be an overreaction to it, but... Besides that, they're not going to do very much. I'm still more interested in why Astrea is also going Blink. You don't really have to match Blink for Blink. Just getting, you know, Immortals and Charge Lots and Archons usually does the trick. And then you kind of just swat away the opponent's Blink Stalkers, like an annoying fly. Whew, that save on that Sentry is pretty good. It is forced to pop its Guardian Shield, so it won't be able to use a Hallucinated Phoenix, but the Observer is actually right in the main, so it doesn't even matter. Oh, and he has Phoenix anyways. Like, why Hallucinated Phoenix when you have Phoenix? We won't be able to use Force Fields, I guess. Might be tricky. Blink Stalkers can obviously blink away from a Force Field, but sometimes they get a little overly aggressive and you can trap them. And, you know, ultimately you don't want to replace a Sentry that could have a Guardian Shield for the big final battle if it survives long enough. If it survives! Come on. Come on. Just kidding. Paying attention is for the rich. That's the best line I've ever heard. You're right. It totally is. Zoun is not a new talent. He's actually another player that everyone thinks is new, but is actually quite old. He's been playing since Pro League, actually. But he just didn't have any results.
Apparently you were doing something right.
So it's understandable, and in some senses, then yes, he is a new talent. But he's kind of gotten some fame because he's taken out a couple of really good standard Koreans, because he is a little cheesy. It's not a dig at him at all. It's like a fact, right? And it's usually how we see people come up in the Korean scene specifically, is through being aggressive first and then figuring out the macro side of things later. Thank you, Sir Duke Nukem, for the 58-month resub. I'm sorry, the what diggity? As if bomb diggity was actually a popular term when I was young. I think it was a popular term in like the late 80s or something. But pretty sure by that time I could actually say words and understand pop culture references. Bomb diggity was no longer in the child/teenage word arsenal. Well, just a lot of scouting going down with a very large number of Blink Stalkers on both sides, which didn't really do anything, by the way. Astrea going for Blink almost defensively didn't really help him do anything. And Zoun going for Blink offensively as a choice didn't do anything. The Phoenix of Astrea, as I was saying, couldn't really do very much anyways, but I guess Zoun's Blink did help defend against those. Don't want to undersell that. But the point is, a lot of Blink Stalkers haven't actually done very much in this game. But they shouldn't be undervalued just because Immortals and Archons tend to be better. They actually have some decent damage, especially with +2, which is done for Zoun, but never actually started for Astrea. Oh, that's bad. That's not so good. But on top of that, Zoun has had a bigger army. Lots of Archons here for Astrea, and lots of shield batteries set up defensively for this attack. But the Archons never really got to shine here for Astrea. They were always in the back of the army. Not up front, just dealing with the Zealots instantly. The Immortals have already gone down here. All of his Guardian Shields have gone down. And Zoun is going to quickly 2-0 Astrea in this PvP. Astrea got the 2-1 last time they met, I think last week or the week before. If I remember correctly anyways. But something about the way Zoun is playing today messed Astrea up big time. And unfortunately for him, it is a single elim bracket, so we're done with Astrea. Psha. Go practice where I am. And now we're just gonna follow Zoun. Zoun would be facing the winner of Chance versus Maxed, and I actually don't know who was going to win that. I assume Maxed got some brand name recognition there, but Chance is also GM. I think it was like GM Terran. I think it was a GM Terran that was like... No, that might be someone else I'm thinking.